If I say the words prayer and healing, you'll probably start thinking about so-called televangelists who are accused of defrauding vulnerable people for money, or of a story where you or a loved one felt that either your prayers for healing were answered or unanswered. It might surprise you to learn that when I hear people talking about prayers for healing, my inner cynic jumps to attention, because I'm afraid of being tricked into believing the impossible by someone taking advantage of my faith, even though as a priest I have prayed for people to be healed who have made full recoveries. But what if you use those words slightly differently and talk about prayer as healing? In this second part of our 4-part series about faith and well-being, I want to find out whether the activities of prayer and meditation can help improve our psychological health.
When we're praying, I think often we tend to bring God a list of things sometimes, and part of that is natural. We want to bring God the things on our hearts, the things that worry us, the situations that are going on, maybe the people that we're worried about. And that's a brilliant part of prayer. I think the wonderful part of meditation and more meditative kind of forms of prayer is that you're trying to still yourself. And a really important part of prayer that's sometimes neglected is giving God all of those things that weigh on us and then pausing. It can give us a chance to find a sense of peace, particularly if we're feeling a bit hurried or a bit worried, or just busy in life, to actually deliberately pause, whether that's in meditation or whether that's in silent prayer. I think there's a lot of crossover in that. But it gives us a chance for some reflection, and that meditative space while we hold those things before God can be quite important. I think that's where a lot of the work happens, in the gap that we leave. Prayer in and of itself, as we bring our list, we're not trying to get Santa to deliver the things to us, but I think there is something about prayer that is a practice that changes us.
It's not only anecdotal evidence that suggests prayer and meditation can change us for the better. A 1998 psychology study found that the frequency of a person engaging in prayer and meditation had a direct correlation with positive improvement in emotional well-being, regardless of a person's commitment or adherence to a particular organised faith. However, in 2017, a further study found that well-being is only improved in people when they have a secure attachment to the divine object of their prayers.
I think largely it's about trust. So if you're not sure what you think about God, if you're kind of new to prayer, think of it like getting to know anybody. When you meet someone, you don't know them very well, you're not quite sure what you think about them. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Are you going to get along? Whatever it is, that's a perfectly normal response to meeting someone new. And God, in some sense, is no different from a human perspective of who God is, what's he like, what's this prayer about. I think that's totally normal, and the way you get through that, as you would with a person, is to spend time with them. So I think I'd say think of prayer like just spending time with God. I don't think there's a wrong way to pray. I think there are many, many different ways to pray, because different forms of prayer work for different people, and different forms of prayer will work for you at different stages of your life as well. But I think a block summary would be, you have corporate prayer, really, where you would come together with other Christians to come and pray. You've got the obvious really informal prayer that you can just do by yourself at home, wherever, that doesn't need any special words. It is just a conversation with God. You have the silent prayer, and that's really when you're trying to enter a state of contemplation where you might hear from God, which is a really important part of prayer that we sometimes forget. And if you're really struggling for what to pray, of course, the prayer that Jesus taught us might be a really good way to start in the Lord's Prayer, which is, in and of itself, a brilliant prayer. One of my favourite types of prayer really is more about being in a state of presence with God. So St. Paul talks about this idea of praying constantly. And I think if we only look at that very silent contemplative prayer We can't pray constantly in that way, it isn't possible. But it's about doing things in your everyday life in a prayerful way. So, if you're like me and you're busy as the kettle's boiling, rather than trying to fit in a couple of things while you wait for it to boil, to just stop. And in the time it takes the kettle to boil, that's the beginning of a contemplative practice, and it's the beginning of that kind of walking with God and praying to God in a way that's through your everyday life. So I think that's a helpful way to look at it as well.
I really love Mel's advice about finding ways of engaging in prayer and meditation that are possible, rather than setting ourselves up to fail by planning to set time aside in the day to be silent when we haven't got time. I once heard someone say that priests are paid to pray, but in my own experience, I struggle to find time to be silent and contemplative, beyond taking part in formal prayer services and praying for others as I've promised, simply because life is so busy. So I think I'm going to be giving kettle contemplation a go in the coming weeks. Before we finished talking, I asked Mel if there was any specific advice she had for those who were considering engaging in prayer for their own internal healing.
There is something about the one for whom we can bring anything, the one for whom nothing is shocking, nothing is too much for God. In some sense, if we have something that we need healing, whether that's some emotional baggage that we're bringing or whether it's a physical ailment, in some sense it's maybe the one place where we can be really honest. It can be a bit difficult maybe to talk to family or friends in a way that's that open. But with God you can be raw, and healing really begins when you're able to talk openly and really honestly about what it is that's going on. Come to God knowing that you are loved exactly where you are, not where you wish you were, with exactly how you're feeling, not how you think perhaps how you ought to be feeling in any one situation. My wonderful mum, who herself is a deeply committed Christian, once said to me as well that sometimes when words end and something seems very overwhelming, that our tears themselves are the prayers to God, even if all you can do is come before God and cry, that God is there alongside you in that. Know that you have a friend that will journey alongside you, and the way to get to know that friend is through prayer.